everyone for joining us today. Well, shoot, I'm sorry to take the focus off of your day, but today we have a very special guest joining us on The Real Show. Contemporary artist Hiroshi Sugimoto will be here to talk to us about 3 projects that he's working on. These 3 projects are theaters, In the Praise of Shadows, and portraits. We will also be joined by 2 other very special guests who I'll introduce in a little while. This discussion with Sugimoto is part of an ongoing series of interviews with photographers whose work has a relationship to the real. As a reminder to our new viewers, those whose photography relates to the real are photographers who are dealing with issues that arise from photography's inherent ability to create a perfect record. The producers here at The Real Show agree that Hiroshi will probably have some interesting commentary in relation to his photographs and that idea. Hiroshi Sugimoto is a Japanese photographer born in 1948. He went to school for politics and sociology, but later became engulfed in the world of photography. Often his work has been described as an expression of time exposed, all of which is pretty inherent throughout his series and his career. He also likes to deal with themes such as life and death. Photo critics such as James Lawrence have applauded Sugimoto for his technical expertise and eloquence. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Hiroshi Sugimoto.
Gangnam Style.
How are you, Mr. Hiroshi?
I was doing pretty good.
Well, let's go first to our Twitter question that we have for you. And it's from Jana, who asked, do you think that light is the most important factor in a photograph?
That's actually a really good question, Jana. Well, every photograph starts with light, and I'm actually really big into natural light. I think you can get the best photographs with natural light. So it's really cool if you go into my studio, there's these big giant windows where the natural light can just shine in. And when I'm taking a photograph and have to adjust the brightness, I just adjust my blinds. So it's pretty cool. I'm kind of old-fashioned photographer. I like to shoot on large format cameras. I'm kind of against a lot of the technological advances in photography. So.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about some of your series that you do. And the first one I want to talk to you about is theaters. And there's a photo of it right there on the screen. Why don't you tell us what this photo is going on here?
So this is actually really cool. It was back in 1970s, like maybe 1975. What I would do is, before the film starts, I would go into an auditorium and set my camera up on a tripod and expose the film for the entirety of the movie. Oh. And once it's over, you get this really great image of like the light just popping off the screen. And it's kind of an interesting way to look at how you can compress 90 minutes of time into one single photograph.
That's really awesome. I also want to talk to you about your portraiture series, and this is really cool. Did you get to meet Princess Diana?
No, I didn't get to meet Princess Di. I didn't get to meet Napoleon either. I think there's a picture of Napoleon. Yeah, so these are actually wax sculptures. And what I would do is I tried to photograph them like they were actually real portraits. It's kind of looking at photography's relationship with the real, and what is real and what isn't. If people think this is real, it's kind of the unique ability of photography to kind of show things that aren't real in a realistic way.
Awesome. That's a really cool concept. The last series I want to talk to you about is In the Praise of Shadows. I mean, what is this light thing that you have going on here?
Yeah, so this is really cool. It's kind of similar to what I did with the theaters, where I took a very long exposure, and what you're looking at there is actually a candle. I would light the candle and expose the film, and I would just keep it exposed until the candle completely burned out. So you get this really unique image that's unique to photography, and it's something that couldn't be seen without photography. So I really like to look at that, and it also shows time, and that's a really important concept to me.
Okay, one other little special thing that I wanted to include in here is I heard about your cabinet of curiosities. Maybe you could tell us what that is?
Yeah, so it's kind of what it sounds like. It's just this shrine with all these random funny objects, and I kind of switch them out from time to time.
That's awesome that you have those things in your studio. It's probably like a little bit of inspiration for you sometimes. Next, we're going to be introducing Mr. Henry Peach Robinson. Well, how are you today, Mr. Robinson?
I'm peachy, thank you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. First, I think we'd like to start off with a Twitter question for you. And according to Sincerely Clary, she wants to know, how did you get into photography?
That's a very generic question. I was into, I studied all aspects of art. I studied drawing and I studied painting. But around 1852, I met a guy named Hugh Diamond, who was another photographer. And I had sort of played with it a little bit, but he really encouraged me to take it more seriously, and so I did, and here we are.
Oh, very awesome. I noticed that there's kind of this conceptual connection between your and Hiroshi's work, as you can see in Fading Away in Portraiture. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about that connection.
Sure. We definitely, you could see, we definitely both question what is real, you know, photography's relationship to people's understanding of what real is, or what it could be, or what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely confuses people, I think, by raising those questions. Mine, of course, was set up that way, and it was combined from a bunch of different negatives.
Mm-hmm.
So none of that actually happened, you know, it's all set up, whereas his is, you know, a wax figure, so that question of whether or not it's real is, you know,
a big concept.
Inherent in both of our,
right.
yeah, it's in both
What
of
do you
our.
have to say about Mr. Hiroshi, or Mr. Sugimoto? Do you think that's...
Well, yeah. First of all, how did it feel to fade away? Well, yeah, I do find to see the relationship between these two things. I think we're both kind of challenging that idea of what's real and what isn't real with photography, and its unique ability to capture those things, show something that's not real, and then make it appear real. And I really am interested in that. Seems like he is too.
Yeah.
Very awesome. I want to introduce our other special guest, who goes by the name Walead Beshty. So let's give a hand for Walead.
How are you?
Pretty good. So why don't you tell us about how you got interested in photography?
Well, I actually was born in London, then I moved to the States. I got my MFA at Yale, and well, photography has always been a big hobby of mine, but especially in the work that I'm showing today, it's weird. I was coming back from a trip, and I was going through an airport, and the x-rays had this effect on my undeveloped film. So whenever I did develop it, all these colors and lines were on it, and I just became fascinated with it.
That's really awesome. Let's go to a Twitter question that we have for you. At Mookie Lover would like to know if you would call your work abstract.
Well, Mookie Lover, I would have to say no. I actually, I try to avoid that term. I really don't like it because to me, abstraction is the absence of something, and I like to think of my work as more concrete, and I like to focus on what's in the frame.
Okay, cool. I noticed that there's kind of like this visual comparison between your work and Sugimoto's work, and I'd like to know if maybe you see that comparison or not, or what do you think about that?
I do see that comparison. I mean, right off the bat, they're both black and white. Kidding. But yeah, I think that we're both exploring with our cameras unseen phenomena, and we're taking advantage of photography and how it can capture what the human eye cannot see. And I think in your instance, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you're looking at time and the lapse of time, and in mine, I'm actually working with light and focusing on that aspect of photography.
So, Mr. Sugimoto, would you agree with?
Well, yeah. I mean, but obviously both images. You know, I don't want to say abstract. You know,
Thank you.
They are abstract.
I prefer concrete.
You know, but like you said, that's something that could never have been seen without a camera, without photography, and it's a way to look at the world in a way that's never been seen before. So yeah, I definitely see that comparison.
Well, I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us today, and thanks to our sponsors, Texas State University. We hope you come and see us again.